Are going to learn two parts of uh, a continuation, what the Rebbe spoke about on Shabbos Parshas Nosoi, Tes Sivan, Tafshin Mem Zayin 1987, a small piece. And then on that small piece, the Rebbe got questions, and the following Farbrengens at the end of Yud Beis Sivan, or the night going into Yud Beis Sivan, the 12th of Sivan, the Rebbe addressed it more at length. So let us begin let's see how many paragraphs in the bottom. 2 paragraphs in the bottom. Ois Mem Tes. V'hi should be the will of Hashem, v'hu ha'ikir, and that's what's primary. This is the conclusion of the entire Farbrengen. Just a few short lines, and the Rebbe is going to explain this in a later Farbrengen. Gam ha'inyan the tashlumim kipshutai. There should also be the idea of making up in the literal sense, b'negeya la'akrovus ha'karbonis beis hamikdash, concerning the offering of the karbonis in the Beis Hamikdash, that will be rebuilt speedily in our days, mamish. The reason we do not say Tachanun for the month of Sivan through the 12th of Sivan, and we only start to say Tachanun on the 13th of Sivan, is because in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, those karbonis, since it was only one day Shavuos, and Yidden used to come from all over to bring their karbonis for Yom Tov, there wasn't usually enough time for everybody to bring their karbonis, so they were given another 6 additional days from the 6th of Sivan, adding another 6 days that would be completed on the 12th of Sivan of Yemei Tashlumim. And earlier in the Farbrengen and other Farbrengens, the Rebbe spoke about these make-up days means that we are making up, we have the capability to make up for anything that we didn't do in comparison concerning Matan Torah, etc., etc. And the Rebbe is concluding over here not only all the spiritual concepts of making up, that anything that we may have that we feel that we had not completed spiritually concerning Shavuos and the giving of the Torah, but the Rebbe adds over here that should be the literal idea of Tashlumim, just like the literal idea of Tashlumim, of makeup in the times of the Beis Hamikdash was referring to the karbonas, to bringing the sacrifices that they did not get a chance to bring on the 6th of Sivan, on Shavuos. So the Rebbe says we should merit that the building of the Beis Hamikdash should take place now, so therefore we will be able to make up for the karbonis that we didn't bring on Shavuos because there was no Beis Hamikdash. Now, during these days, the days of Tashlumim, we will make up for it. This is what the Rebbe pointed out. And he also said, and to note, though during the Yom Tov of Shavuos itself, there was no obligation to bring the karbonis, since the Beis Hamikdash was not yet rebuilt, so therefore there was no obligation to bring a carbon. If there was no obligation to bring a carbon, how could you say the term making up? Making up applies when you are obligated in something. When a person was obligated to do something and they didn't do it, so then under certain circumstances we have a make-up situation. But here the person wasn't obligated. There was no Beis Hamikdash. We weren't obligated. So how do we say that in the days of the making up, the days of Tashlumim, we should be able to bring the karbonos that we didn't bring in the times of the Beis Hamikdash? So the Rebbe says, regardless, it still can be a make-up time. Yeshloimer, we could say, Shezeu al derech ubedugmas bias Moshiach tzidkenu be'emtzi me'asfira. It's similar to the idea. He emphasized it's only similar. It's not the exact thing. Like if Moshiach comes in the middle of Sfira days, how does it work? Are we fulfilling? It's known there's a whole machlokes, and the prevailing view is that Sfira Sa'omer at present is only a midrabanan, because since it says we have to count from the Omer and we didn't bring a carbon Omer, so therefore, we learn out from that only applies in the times of the carbon Omer. So, what happens when Mashiach comes in the middle of the days of Sfira? So let's say it comes on day 30. So the first 30 days, it was the Rabbanon. What about the next 19 days? Are the next 19 days a Torah obligation of Sfira? So the Rebbe says, Shalakama Deis, according to many opinions, Mekayim mitzvah Sfira Omer, we fulfill the mitzvah of the counting of the Omer, Sheva Shabbos Tmimus Tiyanam and Torah, it should be 7 complete weeks from the Torah. Even though Avshas Chol Sasfira Hoysarak mit Rabbanon, even though the beginning of the Sfira was only mit Rabbanon. And the Rebbe uses a term that has to do with Gemara and Allah al derech mitzvah achshave. It's the very mitzvah. It's similar to a concept that the mitzvah gives it a value. So, in other words, a person can say it's not 7 complete weeks. How is it complete weeks if the first 30 days I counted was only the Rabbanon? So how can the 19 rest of the days till number 49 could be considered part of the 7-week cycle? So the Rebbe says, since there's a mitzvah at least mit Rabbanon, so the Rabbanon's mitzvah made it important enough that now retroactively it's considered 7 complete weeks. That's the Rebbe is going to brings an example from Sfiras Omer. Similar to this, Moshiach should come today and will bring the karbanos, similar to the fact that you can count Sfira. If Moshiach comes in the middle of the Sfira and you will count it min ha-Torah, the same thing. Now, after Shavuos, you'll be able to bring the karbanos as tashlumim, as a makeup for what we missed out on the days of Shavuos. Let's continue to the last page of this first Farbrengen, where the Rebbe was speaking about it. Concerning all the other matters of the Shavuos, one of the names that the Shavuos is called is the Yom Tov of the harvest. It's a time when they used to harvest the wheat. It's the Yom Tov of the first fruits when they used to bring. The harvest Yom Tov, the first fruits day, is all connected with mitzvahs that have to do with Eretz Yisrael. Especially through fulfilling the mitzvah of the sabbatical year, which that year in Tavshin Mem Zayin was it Shnas HaShmita. Kedisva Medrash al Pasuk, like it's brought down in the Medrash on the Pasuk, Ratzisa Hashem Artrecha, also Hashmitim Oiseh Shalom Maratzim Maseha. That if you do Shmita, they say, that causes that it appeases Hashem. That's what it means, Ratzisa Hashem Artrecha, through keeping the Shmita, it appeases Hashem. This was said on Shabbos Parshas Noso. So the Rebbe said the parsha after Shabbos Parshas Noso begins with Ba'aloitzchas Haneres. So we also merit too, you're kindling the candles that they're going to say by Mincha after the Farbrengen. Ani mar lechem ner shel Tzion, I'm going to show you the candles of Tzion. The Geulah mitzvah shlema de Moshiach Tzidkenu em heroin mamish, in the true and complete redemption through Moshiach Tzidkenu, speedily in our days mamish. This is the end of the Farbrengen that took place on Shabbos, the 9th of Sivan. A few days later, the night going into the 12th of Sivan, the Rebbe had a Farbrengen. In the later years, the Rebbe would Farbreng even on such a seemingly date which the Rebbe didn't usually Farbreng on, the night going into the end of the days of Tashlumim, and there was a few different topics discussed in the Farbrengen. And here in Ois Zayin, the second paragraph on the top of the page, the Rebbe goes back to what we just now discussed at the end of the Farbrengen of the Shabbos beforehand. Kana Mokum Lataritz, at this is the opportunity, it's the place to answer Mashashol al Meduber Beis Fader Sholifneza, what people asked on what was discussed in the previous Farbrengen, B'negei Liyamei HaTashlumim, concerning the days of the completing of the karbonos, or makeup for the karbonos that we didn't bring. Bisvadas anal nemra brachel cholechet vechem Yisrael. But Klal Yisrael, and the above mentioned Farbrengen was said a bracha to every single Jew amongst the whole Klal Yisrael. Should be Me'at Tashlumim the Chag HaShavuos Hashtod, that in the days of Tashlumim of this present year, of the Tashlumim, the makeup for Yom Tov Shavuos, Niska Lahakiv Sakarbonas the Chag HaShavuos Beis Hamikdash HaShlishi, we should merit to offer the Karbonas of the Yom Tov of Shavuos in the third Beis Hamikdash. On this, a question came up, but the whole tumult about it. And since the days of makeup are making up for the initial thing, there's an expression over there in the Gemara. If a person was not appropriate and able to bring the carbon the first time around because he wasn't what's called ra'ui. For example, it says that the only one there are certain limitations about who has to be oila regel. One of the limitations is literally you have to be able to go by foot. If a person is somehow has a foot injury, so he's not obligated in going to the Beis Hamikdash on the 3 pilgrimage festivals, and he's not obligated on bringing those karbonos that you have to bring in the 3 pilgrimage festivals. What happens if his foot somehow got totally healed and now he's able to walk? So in general, we say, later the Rebbe is going to discuss back and forth about it. We're going to skip that part. Since it wasn't possible for him to do it the first time around, so he's not obligated to make it up the second time around. So therefore, the Rebbe goes back to what he said in the previous Farbrengen, that people asked him, how does it make sense to bring the karbonos offering in the makeup days? When the Yom Tov of Shavuos itself, there was no obligation and possibility to offer the karbonos. Since the Beis Hamikdash was not yet built, especially when we find ourselves outside of Eretz Yisrael, and that's also someone that's outside of Eretz Yisrael does not have a halachic obligation to be oila regel. That's for those that are within close proximity within the borders of Eretz Yisrael. We spoke about many times that every topic has a hint in the revealed part of the Torah. Not only that, it also makes sense and it's appropriate according to the revealed part of the Torah, as we will speak later, going on further. So I'm just going to go to a little snippet of the Gemara explanation that the Rebbe is going to say, and then we're going to go into a further discussion of this topic that the Rebbe is going to raise certain questions. We'll skip a little bit in the middle where it gets a little bit more technical. Oisches, by prefacing. Concerning the Yom Tov of Shavuos, we find in the Mishnayos, Mitzvah Yom Tov doesn't just mean the night after Yom Tov. It means the entire day following Yom Tov. Hoya Yom Tavuach. It's called the day of slaughtering. It's a time for bringing karbonos. The Alter Rebbe in his Shulchan Aruch explains this concept at length. It is from the core halacha that's prohibited to fast the day after Shavuos. There is the days after Yom Tovim in general, it's customary not to fast because it's Isru Chag. But after Shavuos, the Alter Rebbe says, it has a more stringent prohibition not to fast. How come? It was a day of slaughtering that was in the times that the Beis Hamikdash stood. What does it mean it was a day of slaughtering? So let me give an introduction. When the Yidden used to go up, Oila Regel, they used to go up for the pilgrimage festivals on Sukkot, on Pesach, and on Shavuos. We're not talking about the Korban Pesach, and we're not talking about the special Musaf Korbanos that were brought in the Beis HaMikdash. There was also an obligation on the individual to bring certain Korbanos. One was called Shalmei Chagiga. They are Korbanos Shlomim of celebration of the Yom Tov. A Korban Shlomim may be consumed by the Koyanim and by the owners and whoever they want to share it with, even though they're Yisraelim and so on. Additionally, there was something called, they used to bring an Oilas Re'iyah. This was a Korban Oila that was brought for seeing and for appearing in the Beis HaMikdash. Now, a Korban Oila, as different and distinct from a Shlomim, an Oila is not eaten by anyone. It's not eaten not by the owners or those that are bringing it, and it's not even eaten by the Kohanim. Now we know that on Yom Tov, Meleches Eichel Nefesh, only a work that has to do with eating is permitted. Therefore, there's a machloikis about, can they bring the actual Oilas Riyah on Yom Tov? Because nobody's eating it. It's getting completely burnt up on the Mizbeach. And there's a machloikis about it. Beis Shammai said they would not bring it on Yom Tov. You could only bring it the day after Yom Tov. Beis Hillel said, no, it has the same permission like other korbanos that's brought on Yom Tov, and you could bring it on Yom Tov. We're going to read soon inside that even though Beis Hillel, and usually the halacha is like Beis Hillel, said that you could do it, the custom became that everybody brought their Oilus Re'iyah the day after Yom Tov. That's why it's called Yom Tavuch. It was a set aside time for slaughtering, for bringing those korbanos. Let's see inside the words of the Alter Rebbe. Dahainu, again, we'll start from the second line in the third paragraph in Ches. Dahainu sheboi bayom, in that very day, the day after Shavuos, what in the terms of the Alter Rebbe and the Gemara is called Motzei Shavuos. But again, doesn't mean the night. It means that whole 24-hour period after Shavuos. Sheboy makrivim oilos re'iyah shaloi hoyu yecholim lahakriv b'yom tov atzmai. On the day after Shavuos, they would offer in the Beis HaMikdash the oilos of re'iyah that you could not bring on Yom Tov itself. Lefi she'ein b'em shum tzorech oichel nefesh. There is no benefit that a person can consume it because no one can consume the korban oila. Ve'ein mechalin Yom Tov b'shvilam, and therefore one cannot violate Yom Tov for a korban oila. Ki yom she'efshar lakriva achar Yom Tov. In the day, you do not offer it because you could offer it and bring it after Yom Tov. Why are you allowed to offer it after Yom Tov? It's part of the korbanos that you're supposed to bring for being Oila Regel, and Oila Regel has to do with the Yom Tov. So he says, because Shavuos can be made up for the entire 7 days, meaning the 7 days is also counting the 6th of Sivan through the 12th. The Alter Rebbe goes on and says, even though this is the opinion of Beis Shammai, so why are you telling me it was called Yom Tavuach, and because it was Yom Tavuach, we are completely not allowed to fast on that day? But according to the opinion of Beis Hillel, one was allowed to bring these korbanos on Yom Tov itself. Still in all, since when it came to this halacha, Beis Hillel actually followed Beis Shammai's lead. Many Yidden followed the way how Beis Hillel acted, and they also waited till after Yom Tov to bring the Oilos Re'iyah. V'nasalam yom zeh shu mitzoy Yom Tov. So this day, which is the day following Yom Tov, became K'moy Yom Tov atzmai, like the day of Yom Tov itself, le'osur behesped v'tainis, to become prohibited in eulogies and prohibited in fasting, because like a day of Yom Tov, you're not allowed to eulogize, you're not allowed to fast. So the Alter Rebbe concludes, even now, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, it was not permitted eulogizing and fasting on the day after Shavuos. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. Now the Rebbe is going to use this idea in what the Alter Rebbe says to apply it to the concept how we can expect to make up for the karbanos of Shavuos after Shavuos, even though we had no Beis Hamikdash at present. Last paragraph on the page, so it comes out, we derive from this. Even if there was no possibility to offer on the first day of Yom Tov, because of reasons that were completely not dependent upon him. So seemingly, if it's reasons not dependent upon him, so he was not ever obligated. If he wasn't obligated, so there's no idea of makeup. And what are the reasons that are not dependent on them? Since the majority of Yidden acted like Beis Shammai not to offer the Oilasri on Yom Tov. Mikal Malkum, despite that it was reasons completely beyond his control. Yeshnam Shisha Yom Shebehem Yecholim. Va'adra b'chayovim lahakris karbanos d'chag Shavuos. There are 6 days that in those 6 days they are able to, and even more so, they're obligated to bring the karbanos of Shavuos. So now the Rebbe is going to extrapolate from there and apply it now concerning the idea that even though the Beis Hamikdash was not standing this year on Shavuos, Moshiach will come now, will still be able to do makeup. Top of the next page. Moving down from this is understood also in our situation. Though it was not possible to offer the karbanos on the Yom Tov of Shavuos because of a cause that's not dependent upon us. Because the Beis Hamikdash was not yet built. There's no greater situation that's considered beyond this control. Like the well-known saying of the Rabbeim, not out of our will did we go into exile, and not by our powers will we return. Still in all, if the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt in the days of the makeup of Shavuos, at these present days, through the 12th of Sivan, Yuchlu, they will be able to, V'adrab, even more so, Yuchayovim, they will be obligated, Lahakriv Sakarbonos D'chag Shavuos, to offer the karbonos of the Yom Tov of Shavuos. Rebbe gets a little bit more technical in this, and we're going to skip over to the next page, to Ois Yud. Ois Yud, the Rebbe is going to present another problem with how we will be ready to offer the karbonos immediately after the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. So we're going to go to the second paragraph on the page, Ois Yud. There's still an additional question concerning the offering of the karbonos of Shavuos. In the makeup days, Kedei lahakriv korban, to be able to offer a korban, tzrichim kehanim v'levim chulu tahoidim, you need kehanim and levim that are ritually pure, that are able to enter the Beis Hamikdash, are able to do the avodah. Umekiven shebezman hazeh kulam tumeim tumeis, since at present we are all assumed, and we are in the category of someone that is ritually impure because of contact with a dead body. Vizkukim l'tara the parah aduma. We need to have the sprinkling of the red heifer, and this is a process. It's not just done in a minute. It's a week-long process. Hazah b'shlishi or b'shvichu. They have to sprinkle the water with the ashes of the red heifer on the third day of his purification, on the seventh day of his purification. Harigam kasher Moshiach tzidkenu yovid take from yad la'achri chag Shavuos. Let's say Moshiach comes immediately after Shavuos. Yitztarchu lahamtim shiva yom machiyu toirim. They will have to wait 7 days till they're already gone through the tar of paraduma. It's only 6 days left till then the Me'at Tashlumim. In the meantime, the days of making up will be gone. So again, the Rebbe is like questioning what he said in the previous Farbrengen. How can I say it when Moshiach comes? He's going to come now, middle of the days, Tashlumim, the make-up days. We'll make up and offer the karbanas. How can we offer the karbanas? The Kehanim and Levim will be Tamei. We could say the explanation of this by prefacing, but in the Gemara, we find the Gemara Benegeya, Lahal Boshas, Bigdei Kahuna, concerning the dressing in the garments of the Kahuna, Ketzad Hilbisham, how did he dress them? It says over there, how did Moshe and Aaron dress the Koyanim the first time around, when they first had the Mishkan and the Midbar? Skip the parentheses. So the Gemara asks, Ketzad Hilbisham, how he dressed him, what was in the past was the past. Wasn't matter in the Gemara where it's talking about the different halachas having to do with the Bigdei Kahuna. What does it matter how he did it then? The question is, the Gemara says, Ketzad Malbishon La'asid Lavi. The question is, how will we dress the Koyanim when Mashiach comes? So the Gemara questions itself again. La'asid Lavi Nami. When Mashiach comes also, Aaron and the children, and Moshe will be with them. They'll do it the way they did it the previous time around. What's the question? That's the Gemara's idea. Kalaymar. Ein kol tzorech b'shakol v'tarya ketzad malbishin la'asid lavi. The Gemara is saying there is no need for a discussion in the Gemara about how the Kohanim will be dressed when Mashiach comes. Shekein take of a miyad k'sheyed v'yizgal beis hamikdash, immediately when the Beis Hamikdash will descend from heaven and will be revealed. Sheboy bayoim yochel achiv the hakrovas hakarbonis. That very day when the Beis Hamikdash will come down, it will come about the obligation of offering the karbonis and hadlok some menorah and the obligation of kindling the menorah. So Moshe and Aaron will be with them. And they will direct how you're supposed to do all these details. According to this is also answer the question, how will they have Bigdei Kahuna? So he says in the brackets, the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash has to be specifically with the Bigdei Kahuna, with the special garments that Kohanim are supposed to wear when they're doing the avodah. It's impossible that the avodah can be done through one kohen. So you can't say, they'll quickly sew up one set of clothes for one kohen. It's impossible to do the avodah with one kohen. Skip the parentheses. There's a need for the gadim of the kahuna for all the kohanim that are involved in avodah. So the answer to this is since the Gemara says that when there will be the resurrection of the dead, they will get up in the same garments. Yakumu Aaron the Banov in Bigdei Kahuna Shalom. Aaron the Banov will arise with their Bigdei Kahuna. V'gamlen Geulah Aaron, even concerning Aaron. Sha'af shenemar v'yafshit Moshe Aaron is v'godav Bigdei Kahuna Geulah. Though it says that before Aaron passed away and they went over there hidden in that cave in Hoir Ha'or, it says that Moshe removed Aaron's garments. What were the garments that he removed? He removed his big de kahuna, and the begodim of the Kohen Gadol. By Yalbish Oisim Sal Lazar B'nai, he took those very garments of the Kohen Gadol that Aaron was wearing, and he put it on Elazar, the son of Aaron. So therefore, what are you telling me that Aaron is going to get up with the big de kahuna? How's he going to get up with the big de kahuna? They took it off of him before he passed away. How they move on v'gam poshut. It's understood and it's obvious. It doesn't make sense that Aaron is going to rise up without garments. It's not respectful. Surely he will have garments. Not ordinary garments. He will have garments that are appropriate for him. Kahuna garments. That's as we know that the big day kahuna, the pasuk calls it for honor and beauty. Then the Rebbe brings in an interesting historical point, a historical issue, and he says that's not going to be the problem by us. It's known the discussion it was in the times of Rabbi Chil of Paris. He was one of the Rishonim. He wanted to go up, he wanted to make Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael with a group of great sages. There was also a lot of persecutions then. In his time, I believe, they burned wagons and wagons of manuscripts of the Shas. This is before printing. It's a terrible loss. So I guess he wanted to avoid all of that and go to Eretz Yisrael. So there was a discussion in the times of Reb Chil of Paris, if one is able and if it's necessary, if it's obligatory to bring a Korban Pesach, because the halacha is that the Korban Pesach is different than all other Korbanos. Korban Pesach makrivim afal b'shein bayis. One thing is brought down is that you, as long as you're in the correct place, in other words, the place of the Beis HaMikdash, you could bring the Korban Pesach, even though there's no actual building of the Beis HaMikdash. Another idea that it says about the Korban Pesach, v'gam betuma, even if people are not ritually pure, if the entire congregation is not ritually pure, it's only when a few people are not pure that it's delayed to Pesach Sheni. Uleidach, but on the other hand, haritzrichim bigdei kuna, you need to have the godim, you need to have the garments of a kohen to be able to offer the karbonis. You also need the special tchelis colored wool that's made from the blood of this animal called chilazain that's not necessarily available. If so, therefore there was a whole discussion. If Rabbi Chil and his colleagues would go up to Eretz Yisrael, how would they be able to offer the Korban Pesach, because there's no big day kahuna? So the Rebbe says that doesn't have any bearing on our discussion now about being able to be makriv the karbonis of tashlumim, the makeup karbonis for Shavuos. The Rebbe says, when is this all talking about? That there's a whole discussion and a whole problem concerning the big day kahuna. It's concerning the aliyah that was going to be done by Rabbi Chil of Paris in the times of Geulah. As opposed to when it's speaking about the future redemption, when the Beis HaMikdash will be built speedily in our days, built even by Shabbos, will even be built by night. Since Moshe and Aaron and his children are with him, Aaron and his children will arise in Big Dekuna Shalom with their koyanic garments. That's already ready. Just like the Beis HaMikdash is standing ready in Shemayim, so too the Big Dekuna are ready. So how does this help us concerning the Parah Aduma? How are we going to have, even like we said before, even if Moshiach comes immediately after Yom Tov, it takes 7 days to purify in the Parah Aduma process. Well, so he says in the second, He says in the second paragraph, according to this, we could also answer the question from the idea of the purification of the red heifer. Since Moshe and Aaron and his children will not need to go through the tar of the paraduma. How come? Though concerning the prophecy of Mashiach's times, the redemption, it says, I will sprinkle upon you pure waters. It says that in Yechezkel, there is no place brought down in Mamorei Chazal, though Moshe and Aaron will arise, and similarly Avram Avinu and the rest of the tzaddikim, that they will need to be purified with the ashes of the parah aduma. Just the opposite. From the simple reading of that Gemara that we referred to before, that Moshe and Aaron will already show and direct how you should put on the Kohanim garments. Mashma, it's indicated Shekol Ainyonim Binyan Beis Hamikdash Ve'Levishus Bigdei Kuna V'Tchias HaMeisim Yevabasa Achas, that all these things, the building of the Beis Hamikdash and wearing the garments of the Kohen and the resurrection of the dead, this will all be simultaneously. Not such a way that I'll have to wait for the sprinkling in the third and the seventh. The Rebbe doesn't say clearly over here why, but I'm thinking because the very fact of the passing away and being buried, that's considered not like almost like a new person. Many opinions hold that marriages will need to be redone because it's not considered a new person that you rebuilt. It's not the same person as before in regards to that. So perhaps this is also the point over here concerning why there won't have to be any tara of the paraduma, because any tumah that was there before is gone now that the person passed away. Yud Aleph. Alpizim move on. According to this understood, Shamedu Broidus Hakrovas Hakarbons Chagashvuis B'Meat Hashlumim Ein Al Derech Hatzachs Ba'alma. What was spoken about that concerning offering the karbonos of the Yom Tov Shavuos and the makeup days that we are in now is not just in a, it's a nice pleasantry. It doesn't really mean anything reality. Or at least in such a way that says, these and those are the words of the living God concerning the spirituality of the matter. In other words, when you have two opinions, how can they both be right? And how do we say Eilu Divrei Kim Chaim? Because there's one opinion that has to do with down here in the world, and the other opinion, the spiritual aspect of the opinion, remains. So it's not that spiritually there be the concept of offering up the karbonos of Shavuos in the days, in the makeup days, but it will be alagam bepashtus al pinigla. Also, in the simple sense, according to the revealed part of the Torah, Shari Medubar, because what's under discussion is loy b'negel la'aliyah she'Rabbi Paris. It's not talking about the aliyah that Rabbi Chil of Paris was going to do, Ki'im b'negel l'gula mitzvah shleimah de Mashiach tzedkeinu, concerning the true and complete redemption through Mashiach. In a way that I will speed it up, along with the third Beis Hamikdash, that will descend and become revealed from heaven. And Moshe and Aaron will be with them, Kanal Baruch, like we said before at length. Not only that, the idea of the makeup days and making up for those karbanos will be in the ultimate perfect way. Since the offering of these karbanos will be in the third Beis Hamikdash. And the third Beis Hamikdash, as we know, is greater than the previous two. Migdash Adonai Kani Yadecha. It's the Migdash Hashem that your hands set up and erected. Not like the first and second Beis Hamikdash that was built by man, which means Shleimus had the Beis Hamikdash. It's the perfect, most perfect and complete level of the Beis Hamikdash. By the Aaron Kohen Gadol, and it will be run, the Karbonis, through Aaron, the Kohen Gadol, who could be greater than him. Levi and the Levi, Levim b'duchonam, the Levim are on the platform singing. Moshe Rabbeinu will be the Levi in the third base of Mikdash. So what could be greater? It won't just be a makeup; it'll be above and beyond. Similar to what the Mittler Rebbe explains concerning the general idea of the offering of karbonos when Moshiach comes. We say in Musaf on Shabbos that over there in the base of Mikdash we will do before you like the command of your will, meaning as much as we did now, or we did even in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, but primarily as much as we do Hashem's will now, His mitzvahs now, it's not considered totally His will until Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes, the entire world will be perfect. It won't just be complete and perfect in comparison to the state of the world now. But rather in comparison to the perfection of how it will be when Mashiach comes, it will be the most perfect way. Will be fulfilled what was foretold. That will be revealed the glory of Hashem, and all flesh will see together that the mouth of Hashem spoke. Therefore, since the entire world will be perfect, so all the details that make up the carbon will be in its most perfect state. Kol, Gimel, Asugim, the Chai, Tzoimeach, V'doimim, all the three different types of the animals that are used for the karbonis, the vegetation that's used on the karbonis, and the inanimate things that are used on the karbonis, the inorganic things. Habehema, Atzma, the animal itself that's brought, that's from the type and of the chai, of those things that are living beings. Soilus shemen, v'yain the nesachim, there is the sifted flour, and there's oil, and there's the wine of the libations on the karbonis. That's all tzemeach, that's all from the vegetation. And v'melach, and salt, I'll call karbon chatakriv melach, on all your karbonis you have to offer salt, that's doimim. So all these things will be in their perfect state because the whole world will be perfect. So therefore the karbonis brought from these items will be in the mitzvos tzeinach, it'll be according to your will, it will be in the most perfect state. And there's another component in the carbon, which is the person offering it will be perfect as well. Valachas kama v'kama hashlemus the adam medaber, there'll be the perfection of the person, the speaking individual. Atem kriyim adam, you are called adam al shem edma la'elyon, because I'm likened to above. And the people involved in the karbonis at that time will be the kohanim b'avodasam, the kohanim doing their service, the levim b'duchonam, the levim on their platform, singing and playing musical instruments. Yisrael b'mamodam, and the Israelim will be standing by their karbonis. But like it's explained, okay, the isa b'sfarim, sheb'chol karm no yitzarech liyis mikol dal dasugim the doim tzmeach haim medaber. Every carbon had to have in it from all the four types of the inanimate things, of the vegetation, of living creatures, and human beings. Since when Mashiach comes, everyone will be perfect, all of these different things will be perfect. That's the reason that the Frierdiker Rebbe explains, the Middler Rebbe explains, that the karbonos Mashiach comes will be like the mitzvahs that you wanted, because it will be made in the most perfect manner. So it should be for us, will be as Mashiach Tzkeinu b'karv mamish, in the coming of Mashiach Tzkeinu soon in our days mamish. Then there'll be the service of the karbonos in the third base of Mikdash Adonai Kohen Yedacha, the Mikdash of Hashem, your hands prepared. But Maimed Kol Bnei Yisrael, in the presence of all Yidden, B'nareinu v'zkenenu, Goyim Rabbaneinu v'naseinu, our youth and our elderly and our sons and our daughters, Ki ish echad b'leiv echad, like one man and one heart. Yisrael b'mamodam, the Yidden, the Yisraelim that had to stand by the karbonos, Anshe Maimad, they were called the Anshe Maimad, Shem Shluchim D'chol Yisrael, they were representatives of all Klal Yisrael, that there always had to be by the carbon members of the other Shvatim, not just Kehanim and Levim, to represent Klal Yisrael by all the Karbanos that were brought in the Beis HaMikdash. Similarly, there will be the Kehanim in their service, Kehanim the Mishmar Zeh, at the Kehanim of this particular cycle, because there were 24 Mishmaris that they used to change over the entire year. Skip the parentheses. They are performing as representatives of all the Kohanim. So to the Levim on their platform, that they are also representing all the Levim. So therefore, in the Beis HaMikdash, we have the whole Klal Yisrael represented by the different individuals bringing in the presence of the offering of the Karbanos. Should be the will of Hashem, from speaking about all this should come down in actuality. Like we conclude the bracha of Ritzei, it's called the bracha of the Avodah, because we talk about the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash in every single day, that we recite every single day. We recited the bracha Ritzei both on Shabbos and Yom Tov, and we recited during weekdays. How much more so in the days of completion, like we said before, from the word perfection, till the ultimate perfection. Skip 2 lines down to the end of the brackets that we say over there in that bracha. Our eyes should see when you return to Tzion with mercy, speedily in our days mamish, Hashem did not delay them even an eye blink. The pashta simply put, below 10 handbreadths.